a lot of the employers that are open to hearing new ideas, unfortunately, it's because, over the past few years, they've come to a realization that, the route that we're going down currently is unsustainable.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Healthy Savings Podcast. I'm Sasha Gerbov. I'm the co-founder of Milu Health. I'm your host. Today, we're joined by Jimmy Martinelli, who is a employee benefits advisor at the Baldwin Group. Jimmy, thank you for hopping on and joining us today.
Appreciate you having me, Sasha. Happy to be here.
How are you on this fine Thursday in the middle of a heat spell in Chicago?
Yeah, right. I'm good. Some crazy storms the past couple of days, but besides that, we're in the office for most of our days, so don't have to complain too much, right?
I agree. So for everyone else, Jimmy and I randomly met on the interwebs and then realized that we live about 10 minutes away from each other, and my office is probably like 5 minutes away from Jimmy's home in Evanston. So this is the first ever Healthy Savings podcast local show,
right?
Which is great. But Jimmy, usually we start these off just by hearing about your background, how you got into the benefits world, what the Baldwin Group is and is like, and how where you spend your time and energy and focus.
Yeah, definitely. So I think would start. I grew up in the Chicagoland area. Played sports my whole life. Ended up playing college basketball at NYU and in New York. And when I was there, just was interested in a whole different range of topics, and found myself when I had time to work in the startup world. So worked for a few startups when I was there, and that's what I ended up doing out of college. I worked in technology, mostly tech sales, and really enjoyed it. But I do have some family that was in the insurance brokerage business on the commercial risk side, that were like, hey, benefits is, up and coming, more so for younger folks like myself, interesting industry, all of those good things. So I made the move to the Baldwin Group about a little over 2 years ago now. And our headquarters are in Tampa, Florida. We're publicly traded, and we have probably close to 5,000 employees now nationwide. So I've been tasked with helping build out our presence on the benefit side in the Midwest, and it's been awesome. We have a lot of resources. We're a national firm as well, so that gives us just the ability to work with a lot of clients in a range of different industries, which is what I truly enjoyed. That was initially why I got into the startup world, was to try and solve problems. And now I feel like it's similar for benefits as well. It's a very entrepreneurial role, and you get to work with a lot of different people, different personalities, and solving problems, which are how to get people's health plans spent down and get people healthier. And
that's awesome. I didn't realize that the Baldwin Group was that big. Like when you and I met before, and you mentioned that you guys were a publicly traded company, that blew my mind. Like I had no idea.
Yeah, the firm was founded in 2011, so we've seen industry leading organic growth, a lot of it via acquisition over the past couple of years. The office that I sit in was Rosenthal Brothers that was acquired by the firm in 2020. So, the strategy, it seems like, has been, acquiring high performing independent agencies and rolling us up into, the Baldwin Group and providing those resources. It's really helped, just propel us moving forward with a lot of growth, not only in our office, but nationwide as well. So it's cool to, have colleagues all over the country that I can connect with, and, somebody is going to have the expertise even if I don't have it. So a lot of people that have a ton of experience, and I'm able to pick their brains too. So we have a really good culture as well. People are willing to help and just go the extra mile and do what's right for the client.
What's been your experience like building out the employee benefits practice? It's not an easy thing to do. It's almost like you've got your own startup within a larger enterprise, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was part of the reason why this position was pretty enticing to me. But, it's been an evolutionary process. We're still, in the midst of it right now, but, albeit it's been good. So people have been receptive to our ideas, and obviously we're based in Chicago, so there's a lot of competition as well. So just not only getting brand recognition and our name out there, but also, our capabilities. We like to take, the approach of, due diligence and things of that nature to help people out. So, it's been great thus far, and I'm looking forward to continue growing in the next couple of years as well.
And are there specific types of employers that either you or the Midwest office focuses on? Like, do you find that most of your book of business is in one space or another?
Sure. I mean, I think it's just because it's the Midwest. There's a lot of manufacturing. Um, but in terms of a niche or anything of that nature, not necessarily at this point. I just feel like I work with a lot of manufacturers, property management companies, but then it varies. I mean, I work with some tech companies. I work with a lot of restaurant groups as well, um, staffing agency, nursing homes. That's why I like employee benefits. You get to work with businesses in all different types of industries, and really learn about the intricacies of how they operate, and how they approach employee benefits, because it's one of their top line items that they're going to have to account for every year. So advising them through that process and acting more so as a consultant, rather than just a guy that's quoting their insurance. I felt that approach has boded well with a lot of folks thus far.
What does it look like when you start working with a new client? Like, how do you, or even when you meet a new client, you figure out how to put together plans for them? What's the process that you go through to figure out what are their needs and what kind of plans and solutions that they can be looking for?
Sure. No, I feel like especially in Illinois, it's very much so a lot of fully insured groups with Blue Cross or UHC, whoever it may be. So first is just kind of gauging how receptive they are to other ideas, whether that be level funding, self-funded, looking at other platforms that can help mitigate spend, something like My Health as well for self-funded employers. So um, just in that discovery process, you know, trying to get a gauge for, what has their experience been like from a benefits perspective? Are they just, receiving their renewal a month before and it's a 8 to 12% trend increase, and it's just, okay, let's just renew as is? Or, has their prior broker been bringing innovative ideas um, to their company? So that's kind of the first thing I like to go through is, figure out how receptive they are. And then from there, just evaluating the plans that they currently have, seeing where their claims are coming from regarding age and gender, things of that nature. Then just, going through and, kind of just doing a deep dive into, what are some plans that you like to offer. So, whether that be a high deductible health plan, with a PPO plan or an HMO. Every organization is different, but I think it's kind of a balancing act to having a variety, but not 6 or 7 plans to being offered to the employees, because let's face it, a lot of employees, health insurance isn't necessarily on their mind all day, every day, like it is for us. So, they just get their benefit guide or whatever the case may be and say, hey, this plan looks good. So I really try and focus on employee education as well, because I've found that I've read some studies that, I mean, the leading cause of bankruptcy in the United States is from medical debt. And, obviously healthcare is extremely expensive, one, but two, uh, I think a lot of consumers haven't, and it's no fault of their own, but just it's so complex that they haven't taken the time necessarily to understand how insurance works and how you need to go to network providers, and how out of network can expose you to those high costs. So I would say, just to recap, first would be, gauging their interests in outside ideas. Second would be just evaluating their plans. And then third, once we put the new plans in place, if that's the route we go down, and even not, but employee education, just try and stress that as much as possible too.
It's funny, both the medical debt and the employee education piece are two things that we think about like all day, every day. And they're so huge. On the medical debt side of things, like I don't know if in this country we're ever gonna get away from that problem,
Yeah,
without some kind of massive government intervention.
sure.
But we do find significant ways to help people, like when we can get involved or when anyone can get involved, right? There isn't like a secret sauce that we have in calling up a major hospital system and saying like this bill is wrong, or is there a discount available on this thing. It's just like doing it, and your average employee doesn't. And then I think that goes to the education piece. Like I'm sure you guys have great programs during open enrollment and seasonally, but at the end of the day, like you need the employee to go to the meeting and to remember it when they have a
Exactly.
healthcare crisis coming, and you know it's hard to do.
For sure. So it's been, you know, and from that perspective, employee education, it's been a little bit of an uphill climb. We do have a lot of resources at open enrollment, but like you mentioned, I think a lot of it is, you know, getting the employees actually engaged in what's going on and having them understand that this can have a significant impact on not only their financial health, but their legitimate overall health as well. I mean, whatever plan they pick. I mean, if you have an HMO plan, you just have your primary care physician or you need a referral. But if maybe that is good for somebody, but another person that wants a wide range of doctors, looking at a PPO plan, things of that nature. So what I found is, it experience level varies definitely for these employers. How much do they understand what a copay is or out of pocket maximum? Just those buzzwords you hear because insurance we have a lot of jargon terms too, so it's hard to sift through all the noise. It seems like so. I like to approach open enrollment with an educational mindset, not only for our employer groups that we help, but for their employees too, because at the end of the day, that's who the employer is providing the insurance to, and that's who we're helping try and obtain the best coverage for them as well.
And then as you think about your clients and new clients that you start to work with, who are you generally talking to? Is it almost always the HR leader or the benefits leader? Is it finance or the president or CEO of the organization?
Sure, it varies. I would say probably all three. At some point, there's typically an introduction either to an HR person or somebody in finance, whether it be a controller or the CFO. And I found, they're the ones to have the conversations regarding, what the actual renewal looks like in terms of financial details, and then we work typically with the HR team to set up what is our open enrollment strategy going to look like, what sort of communication collateral are we going to offer, how do they want us to come on site, how long is open enrollment going to last for, and then finally typically work with the ownership, and that's more so in the decision making capacity. So whether it be the owner of the company or the CEO, like gives his final stamp of approval on everything, but most of the day to day goes with the finance and HR teams. Once you did all the back end work and kind of have it on a platter, then uh, you know, that's how I typically like to operate: is have everything completed and then just give the bullets to the owner, so it's easy for them to sign off on because they have a lot of going on. Not that the finance and HR teams don't. I mean, I understand that benefits is a small percentage of everyone's job, but for you and I, it's everything basically. So trying to remind myself of that sometimes is a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I have the same struggle. We, have a really exciting project going with someone, and then they're busy. Like that project
That
is 1% of their brain space, and so it takes a while to get around to it and
sure.
push it forward. And I think that's just the name of the game in the employee benefit space. And then there's a crisis, and like then it's all hands on deck, and it's 100% of everyone's time.
For sure. No, definitely. Just I've just been trying to be mindful of that. You know, they have other stuff going on, like you mentioned, and then but it's just funny sometimes if there's a problem or whatever the case may be. It's like, all right, let's get to it, and then you just got to be ready for if and when that occurs. But I think for me, it's been just being mindful and thoughtful about being in my client's shoes. They have a business to run, they have employees that they need to take care of, not just from a benefits perspective, but holistically as well. And yeah, they just have a lot going on, and health insurance is sometimes lower on the totem pole, but once the renewal comes around, it etches up and kind of gets up there to being a top priority.
What you mentioned earlier that, you kind of gauge the client's interest in, do they want to go with the status quo? Do they want their Blue Cross renewal, or are they trying to do something different? What's the profile of folks that you see who want to go do something different? Is it like, my guess is it's folks who are just getting hit with significant increases, or folks who are growing and realizing they're at that point. But how does that actually play out for you? Like when do you go into those more customized conversations?
Sure. Yeah. I would say, unfortunately, it's when there's a lot of pain, double-digit increases year over year. And, they're not they're a little bit in the dark as to why that's occurring. Each state is different, but I know for Illinois, typically for employer groups of under 100 enrolled, if you're fully insured, you don't have access to your claims data. So it's pretty hard to gauge how your plan is running if you don't have access to your medical loss ratio or your high cost claimants, things of that nature. So a lot of the employers that are open to hearing new ideas, unfortunately, it's because over the past few years, they've come to a realization that the route that we're going down currently is unsustainable. So they're open to looking at, hey, would level funding work, or what is an ICHRA, or how about self-funded, things of that nature. So and then the other point that you made, definitely for growing businesses too, they're more open to it as well. If you're a high growth startup that just hired 50 people within the past year, it's going to change your benefits needs, your employee population profile. Those are typically the two sort of subsets that I see of folks that are interested, as well as a third. I've just found, if their current broker isn't bringing really anything outside the box to the table, sometimes they're willing to sit down and hear what I have to say. Not that others are complacent necessarily. I'm not saying that, but it's just more so like a lot of companies just go with the status quo, and but once it gets to a point where it's not sustainable, then they're more open to looking at different ideas, because as you know, the world of healthcare and employer sponsored health insurance, there are a lot of different levers and funding arrangements that groups can go into, but it's just explaining it in a thorough and detailed manner is, I feel like, where a lot of the hiccups are. It's just people are a little bit resistant to change, which is, I totally understand. But if you're just going to keep getting double-digit increases every year and not know necessarily how that's occurring, it's pretty difficult to mitigate that cost.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are you seeing more people consider ICHRAs?
I have in the past few years, yeah. It's somewhat of a newer funding arrangement that's come to the table over the past couple of years, but yes, I mean, individual coverage, health reimbursement arrangement for those who are listening. A lot of acronyms.
That's a great point, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
pretty much no one should know what an ICHRA is right about now. That might change. I asked because maybe about a year ago, I read a really interesting article basically talking about like the dawn of the 401k and how that came about because of a legislative change that provided tax savings to employers for
Sure.
creating 401ks. And it took a while, right? But like, because before that it was pension plans, and like, if you worked at big employer at Johnson and Johnson, or whatever other big G, like you'd have a defined contribution pension, or a defined benefit pension, and then that switched to a 401k, and nobody ever thought it was going to happen. There, like, you look at articles from the 70s, they're like, well, who would ever do that? And then the flip happened, and so there's this argument that like ICHRAs can be that. And it just opened my eyes. And I don't know, like, obviously the world changes if everyone goes to an ICHRA. I do think we as Americans kind of expect our employers to provide healthcare for us,
Yeah.
whether or not that's long term good for the system. Like, if I put my bias aside, because we work with employers, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, if you and I sit down and design a health system from scratch, it would probably have nothing to do with employers, but that's not the case.
Exactly.
And employers are kind of left with this requirement to go and do it.
No, for sure. So I've just found that I think ICHRAs are interesting for those listening. Instead of, right now how most employer sponsored plans are constructed is, there's a few set plans that are offered to employees, and then they can just, they pick what plan they want, and then it's up to the employer based off of affordability and things of that nature to provide what sort of contribution that they would like. Whereas the ICHRA model, the employer groups are providing a reimbursement for their employees. So it could be a set dollar amount, but it is variable. You can do different employee classes, and it's on the employee to go to their state's individual marketplace and purchase coverage for themselves. So, for example, if an employer offers $200 in reimbursement every month, and you're a younger, say, male or female that doesn't go to the doctor that much, and as it stands right now, your employer doesn't offer a high deductible health plan, it might make sense if they switch to an ICHRA model to go and say, hey, let me go purchase this high deductible health plan and for a significantly lower premium than I was paying beforehand. And as well as if there's leftover money from the reimbursement, they can use it towards copays, towards deductibles, and other out of pocket costs. So I think it's a really interesting model. It's I think it's going to take a lot of time though to become mainstream, but there are some early adopters, and mostly those that are, like I mentioned, is because they've felt significant pain with how the archaic system has been in the past, and they're just open to trying something new, and it's they're still offering a good benefit to their employees, in my opinion, and it could be argued as well that the employees have more flexibility, but it does put um, more responsibility on the employees to educate themselves on how the plants are constructed. But there are some good platforms out there right now that can help assist with that. So I think moving forward, it's something to keep an eye on. But I think it's still going to take a few years to really catch on with the masses. But I think it's interesting, and it definitely, I think it's here to stay.
That makes sense. Have you looked at the individual exchange in Illinois? Because that was kind of my one question around will ICHRAs take off? About a decade ago, my wife and I we just got married, and we spent a year traveling. We like hiked the national parks and lived abroad, and
That's awesome.
yeah, is the best. But so that was my only time buying a plan on the exchange.
Mhm.
And that was what, 2015 ish. So it was earlier days of Obamacare, but I remember, like, I was shocked by how expensive the plans were, and we were young and didn't buy very expensive plans, but it was still a lot of
Exactly.
money. Now the employer, of course, subsidizes it with an ICHRA, but I don't know. I haven't dug in too deeply recently to see, like, how good are the plans that you can buy, and how affordable are they if you're buying an
Mhm.
individual plan on the exchange.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, it's comparable to employer sponsored plans, but albeit, health insurance is just expensive in general. So that's the problem, especially for platinum or gold tier plans that are offered. The rates are pretty comparable to what's offered on an employer sponsored basis too. So I think that moving forward, I know that the state of Illinois is, at least they've said, hopefully trying to um, keep the cost down for the individual marketplace and sort of stress that as an alternative for folks that don't have private health insurance. But at least what I've seen from the marketplaces, the rates are relatively comparable. So that's something to keep in mind for employer groups if they are looking at an ICHRA is, how much are you going to change your employer contribution because with the reimbursement amount, because, you know, benefits are a part of it, but in my opinion, it might be a little bit biased, but I think it does, you know, definitely help with attracting and retaining talent. So if you're going from, contributing a ton to your employer sponsor plan to, you know, cutting that in half or whatever the case may be, definitely there could be some turnover from an employee perspective. But just in general, at least what I've seen, the rates are relatively comparable, maybe even a little bit cheaper on the individual marketplace. But just in general, health insurance is expensive,
Yeah.
or however way you want to slice it, really. So,
So we started Milu 2 years ago, and when Gotham, my co-founder, and I did, we left our previous employer, and I think maybe went on Cobra for, I don't remember if it was for a month or a month and a half or half a month before we got up and running, and had our own plans. But man, just seeing those Cobra premiums. And
yeah,
for anyone listening, Cobra is, I actually have no idea what it stands for, but it's the government program to pay for your old health insurance when you leave a job, but you got to pay the full amount. So like that's the first time you see what your employer is actually paying, and it's crazy. Or
yeah,
you see it in the benefits packet, but like nobody can decipher that stuff.
right, exactly. It's a little sticker price shock when you see, wow, my employer is actually contributing a ton to my health insurance, and typically it seems like a lot of individuals decline Cobra, especially if they have a family, because the premiums are, I mean, thousands of dollars per month, and it's unsustainable. So, yeah, it's definitely like that sticker price shock if you have to go on Cobra, like, wow, our plans are really expensive. I don't think I don't know if I'm going to continue with this. So
Yeah. I mean, that was us. We had a family plan. I was like, I think the employer must have subsidized more for the family plan to make it, more than they do for the individual to make it like a
sure,
little bit more affordable. But it was it was wild.
yeah, no, it is. So isn't it fun?
It is. It is. It is. It is. What do you see out in the market in terms of innovative stuff? Like when you look at some of the employers that you guys work with as a firm that are like at the leading edge of doing something new, or even as you think about like where does the industry go in the future? Um, what do you think it looks like? Like what are you seeing, even if it's like small specs that are super early and out there that you're excited about?
I think something that's interesting is employer groups that are offering, on-site clinics or having a primary care physician come out on site to be able to perform routine exams for little to no cost for employees. Because I feel like for a lot of individuals right now, the trouble is just, getting to the doctor for, your physical and your annual checkup. Um, and then from there, if you hold it off for a while, that's kind of when the problems start to arise is when you go back. So I'm hoping that in the next few years, we can work more on, preventative measures. I'm a little bit of a health and wellness nut too. So selfishly, hopefully, uh, more education around nutrition as well. So my grandmother actually started a nutritional firm called Nutritional Concepts, where she does consultations for folks. She's been doing that for over 35 years. So, um,
That's cool.
yeah, very, very cool. And now my uncle is a partner in the business as well. And my mom worked there for a while too. So,
This is like
when I,
one-on-one like nutritional coaching
Mhm.
for individual people.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was the kid growing up that came to lunch with like turkey, avocado, and an apple. And like every day packed lunch, and all my friends are like, what are you eating? Just get a slice of pizza or something. So um, I'm hoping that employers start to understand that eating right, as well as incentivizing, maybe it's a workout class or if they can afford it, an on-site gym or subsidizing gym memberships too, just helping individuals get healthier. As the United States just in general isn't necessarily the healthiest nation in the world. So I'm hoping that we can try to make some more lifestyle shifts, and then I think that their results will hopefully hold up on that end. Just as individuals, the thought is once they get healthier, claims start to come down. So just to round it out, what I've seen from employer groups is that on-site physician. I think that's really interesting. Just if you don't have an excuse at that point, the doctor's already there. All you got to do is just walk down the hall and see what's going on, and then just being innovative around wellness programs. Fitness being one of them, nutrition being another. I'm hoping that starts to take hold as well moving forward.
I heard a cool story from an employer group. It might have been through their advisor. I don't remember exactly, but talking about on-site clinics, and they were working with a vendor or they did it themselves. I think it must have been a vendor where they did on-site clinics with like trailers pulled up near the manufacturing plant.
Yep.
And they had it like twice a week, let's say, I don't know, Mondays and Tuesdays or something, but they worked out a deal where the vendor would park the trailer there on the other days if they didn't have somewhere else to take it, just for awareness. It's just like, whatever the name is, primary care X, but like it's there, like every day you're walking by it. And I thought that was the smartest thing ever, like I've been waiting for 3 months to reschedule a dentist appointment that I needed to, but like, if I walked by it every day, I'd pick up my phone and actually do it. Mm-hmm. But it's little stuff like that can start moving the needle on
exactly
healthy habits.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's just, I feel like for employer groups moving forward, just, constant contact with your individuals, whether you have a wellness calendar or you're sending out an email blast, hey, this is, I think something cool that employer groups are doing is, company challenges. For example, I've seen some where it's like they'll have a steps challenge in that month, and they'll have an app to track, who's doing the most steps, and there's a leaderboard, and it's interactive with all the employees, and whoever has the most steps that month, gets a gift card or some little weekend trip or something like that to incentivize the employees to start implementing healthy habits. I think that's something cool that employer groups have been doing as well, and just making it fun as well. So like that example I just used with the steps challenge, it's interactive. I'm competitive, so I know if that was my employer, I would be just standing up all day again, like a little walking treadmill or something. So making it fun, getting people involved, and like you just mentioned too, providing awareness around getting healthy, going to see your primary care physician, going to that dentist appointment is important, I think, as well.
My dad is a software developer at a big hospital system, and they do, I think, a lot of wellness challenges. And he has a Fitbit, and he was telling me a story that like someone was telling him that they took their Fitbit and like put it on the dog just to try to get some extra steps in. And like, someone cares that much, like, kind of working,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, this has been awesome. Thanks for hopping on the podcast. It's been really cool to hear about how you think about the space and the type of groups that you work with and the great stuff you guys are doing.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, Sasha, and it's great to hear from you as well and your thoughts and what Mylu's building too. It's very, very interesting and something I think that I'm hoping if you're listening, you know what Mylu Health is, but moving forward, I think you guys are definitely on the cutting edge of what's to come within the industry. Utilizing electronic health records, and that's just something that a lot of employer groups probably don't even realize that it's available to them. So it's cool to see you guys kind of forging a new frontier within our industry, and hopefully going to be able to provide some real impact. I think you guys will as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Great to see you.
Thanks for listening to Healthy Savings by Mylu Health. If you would like more information about any of the topics you have heard today, we would love for you to get in contact with us. Find us on the web at myluhealth.com.